Hello, I'm the Cartoon Gentleman, bringing you organized chaos. Hey kids, guess what? Puberty sucks! And you know what's even worse than puberty? Being stuck with someone who's going through puberty. So, this should be a really entertaining episode of My Little Pony. This is Secret of Excess. So, the episode begins with Twilight rearranging the books on her shelves for probably the umpteenth time, while Spike is going on his own little monologue, explaining how he's been aging a fine ruby for his own personal birthday present for himself. Okay, stop right there. Just a few quick questions. First off, how does one age a gem? Wouldn't it just erode over time? If anything, you should probably eat it as soon as you find it, otherwise you don't know how much is going to be left of that sucker. Secondly, you said you're going to give it to yourself for your birthday. Are you celebrating the day you were born, or the day you hatched from your egg? Because both of those have very significant questions that I want answered. But sure as the sun rises, Rarity comes when she sees a gemstone a-calling for help. She sees that Spike is planning on eating it, and is morally upset over the fact that such a priceless gemstone is going to be reduced to a snack. But, out of his generosity and kindness, Spike decides to give Rarity the gemstone as a present. And she returns with a... I smell the sheep. He's a child. Piss off. Yarg. I will get a ship on this show. Afterwards, Twilight makes Spike decorate his own party for everybody to arrive, as well as the two of them having a fight over whether or not he's going to wash the cheek that Rarity kissed or not. How the fuck did this happen? So after the laws of the universe correct themselves, they begin with Spike's party, which of course includes lots and lots of presents. But Spike was never used to getting too many presents. Mostly because Twilight was the only one who ever gave him anything, and it was always the same type of present. A book. So for a baby dragon to actually experience real presents for the first time ever, it was quite the experience. And remember kids, if your parents give you nothing but books for all your presents, then they don't really love you. Isn't that right? Stop telling people that books aren't presents! They're not! They just collect dust! If you actually read one once in a while, maybe it would actually be funnier. Well, Pinkie Pie alerts to Spike that there's a special cupcake made just for him at Sugar Cube Corner, so he races over there to get it. But he soon discovers the power of telling people that it's his birthday, as he's getting more and more gifts for doing nothing. But of course, Twilight scolds him on this behavior, but he doesn't seem to quite have gotten the message. Not until the very next day.
What's happening to me, Twilight? I don't know. Think back to last night. Did something happen?
He's going through puberty. He's going through puberty. For fuck's sake, Twilight, he's going through puberty! I refuse to accept the idea that Twilight, of all ponies, doesn't understand the concept of growing up. Well, they tried taking him to the doctors, but the doctor doesn't seem to know what he's doing. So they take him to a vet, and... Really, Twilight? A vet? You take your child slave to a vet. I know the doctor was pretty useless, but come on, Twilight! A veterinarian? You could have at least took him to Fluttershy. Well, they finally take Spike to the one competent pony in all of Equestria with all the answers, as Zecora is the only pony in all of Ponyville who seems to understand the concept of puberty, and explains that as a dragon matures, their greed intensifies. The only way to stop the growth spurts is to get Spike to stop being greedy. But that's right before Spike takes everything Zecora owns and runs off. A thought occurred. How come this hasn't happened before? I mean, Spike has had other birthdays, and with those birthdays would come this sort of greed. Could it be that books are so much off the gift spectrum that they actually count as a negative point towards greed? So maybe that's the equation. Maybe the more books you give people, the less greedy they become, because they are not gifts. Ow! Stop hitting me with books! Stop telling people not to read! It's destroying the country! Comic books do not count as legitimate reading sources. They count! They are books! They're comic books! Still books! Book is in the name! Well, this begins Spike's true reign of terror. The more and more he steals, the bigger and bigger he gets. And he steals everything. From Scootaloo's scooter to the leaves and apples off of Applejack's trees, all the way down to all the cakes that Pinkie Pie is willingly throwing at him in a defensive measure. Is this technically stealing? Because she is just throwing it literally at him. I don't know where to put this. Well, Spike has become a true monster at this point, revealing his full adult form and stealing everything that comes with it. The Wonderbolts come to Ponyville to try to stop Spike, but he defeats them rather easily for an elite flying force. Why do the Wonderbolts even exist? They're useless! Well, Spike manages to kidnap Rarity, and as she's lecturing the beast, he notices the gemstone that he gave Rarity as a child. Rarity fights him off, but this gem reminds him of his generosity, of the gift of giving rather than taking, which reverts Spike back to his regular childish... Wait a minute. How did that happen? No, you can't get around that. Puberty does not work in reverse. Or does it? Regardless. Well, as Rarity and Spike plummet to their doom, Spike tries to tell Rarity his true feelings for her, but Rarity seems to stop him halfway through and just sort of looks at him with a weird glimmer in her eye. Yarg, still a child. Not in this episode, he's not. Technically, he reverted back, so... yeah, still a child. So buzz off! Yarg! You broke me good leg! No legs of yours are good. Well, Rainbow Dash and Fluttershy save Spike and Rarity at the last second. Spike feels genuinely bad about his destruction and dangerous behavior, but Rarity's there to comfort him as well as the other members of the main six, and so Spike begins to write his lesson of the day to Princess Celestia. And that was Secret of Excess. Was it a good episode? Was it a bad episode? It was a meh. Well, this episode was good for the time, but considering how far MLPs have come since this episode, it's still just a meh episode. But, given its time frame, I'm going to give this one a big pass. I'd give it about a B+. After all, we got to see a Spike episode that didn't involve him screwing up. It was actually more of his biological tendencies than it was his emotional ones. But this episode does raise a lot of weird questions. Mostly, how did that whole reverse puberty thing work? And Spike celebrating either his birthday or his egg hatching? But mostly of all, who the hell gives books as a gift? Ow! This was the Cartoon Gentleman Show. Subscribe and like.